Yep, can you hear me?
All right, can you guys hear him better or nah? It's probably on my end. I'm working on the bob. I mean, I'm working on the bob. I'm working on the audio as we go to turn it up a little bit. Very low, very low. All right, give me a mic check one more time.
We good?
Whoa, you screaming? Why you screaming, bro?
You say mic check, I'm just yelling at you.
It just went from the lowest setting ever and just blew up my speakers, my headset. I literally just almost fell out of my chair. Almost happened again. I'm glad it didn't though. I don't need any more OnlyFans or chair jokes on Twitch. I actually brought you on here so I could burn you a little bit. I'm tired of that, okay? So just chill the out. No, I'm just kidding. You're good.
This isn't OnlyFans?
Oh my god, shut up. All right, you got it all tweeted out. We good to go?
Good to go, brother.
All right, awesome. So, again, I just want to introduce you guys to Mystic Mac, aka Gary, top trader here. He pretty much is a momentum trader just like I am, if not even he's probably better than I am, honestly. So, you guys make sure you guys give him a follow over on Twitter. I'll drop that for you guys in the chat. If you want, Gary, you can kind of go through maybe your top trades. I'm going to put it on my screen and maybe how you played it, what you thought about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
I can start if you want, or you can start. I don't care. I think you played better than I did today after seeing your P&L. Do you want me to share that with the class?
Yeah, for sure. And like I do post P&L from time to time, because when I was a new trader many years ago, then I would see people making insane amounts of money, and it was just motivation, inspiration for me to keep getting better. So it's just something that hypes me up, and it shows what's possible when you do figure out how to read these charts. So I think it's a great thing that you got this stream here, to teach everyone how to actually trade these momentum trades.
Yeah, of course. I'm so happy that people are actually like so excited to learn this method because it's not something I knew about when I came into the market. And just the fact it's kind of, I mean, I was always one of these people who like to flip things, buy and sell, like retail things, tennis shoes, sneakers, whatever, I
For
could to
sure.
make money. So the fact that you can do it in the market and you don't have to like wait to find a customer is like the biggest difference for me.
Exactly.
What do you guys think in the chat?
Um,
You guys are big sellers, huh? You guys are flippers. I know it. Go on, sorry.
oh no, you're good. So yeah, so I started the day with ENVB,
All right.
and uh, everyone knows today, if you traded the market, that volume today, it was not nearly as good as it was yesterday. So the volume moves that we had today were not as great as we would like, but the cool thing with momentum trading is there's going to be at least some opportunity under any market conditions. So with ENVB, it was actually my first trade of the day because I didn't really like the action in pre-market this morning. So I kind of set back in pre-market and I waited for things to set itself up. So with ENVB, what I was looking at right here is it got an initial pop in pre-market when the news came out this morning. It signed a development deal with Diverse Biotech. So for the news that we had this morning, that was kind of on the better side of the news that we did have, and it got interest, and we know that it had interest early on by the initial volume spikes. So that put it on my radar, and pretty much all of pre-market, we kind of flagged a little bit and consolidated above the 9 EMA on the 5-minute chart. So it was something that was definitely on my radar. And knowing that it had the news and the initial interest, then it was very thin in pre-market because a lot of times in pre-market things are just way too thin to actually add into. So I waited for open and I caught the tiny dip at open, and I loaded my shares in at open, based on it holding the area in pre-market. And then I waited to make sure that it wasn't just going to fail down, um, because I didn't want to tweet out a play that's on its way down. So once I got confirmation that we held, then I felt confident in it. So we get the volume spike at open. I took an entry. Um, it was around my average after adding all of my shares was like $4.24. So that was my entry price was 424 to 428. Was basically what my average was. And then from there we get volume rolling in. Um, I'm sorry, do you guys hear someone talking in the voice chat here? I'm sorry. One second. I need to mute someone because I hear someone talking.
Oh, gotcha. I don't hear anyone. So if you guys have anyone who's speaking in the voice chat, you guys can also right click and mute them. I'm pretty sure I've muted everyone on my side.
Okay, sweet. Um, all right, perfect. So, yeah, anyway, like I was saying, so the volume comes in after open, and um, like I was saying, I didn't take anything pre-market because things were a little bit thin, and in pre-market, things are still setting themselves up. And I say a lot of times that sometimes it's better to sit on your hands because especially if you're under PDT and you're trading something in pre-market and it's not, a proper setup, then you might have used your only day trade for the day before the bell even rings. So if we don't have an absolute fire pre-market and things are kind of iffy, sometimes it's better to wait until the opening bell rings. So that's what I did today is I waited for the opening bell and then the volume does come into ENVB and like I said, I had 420 ads, and um, then we get the high up to 490 is where we tapped. So I didn't hold all and get out at 490. I actually thought we were going to break five, so I still had some shares, and I had to sell a little bit coming back down into the 470s and 460s because I was holding for that five break, but 490 was all that we wanted to go to. And then accelerated selling started coming into the play, and it kind of killed the momentum with it. Um, so we were kind of done after that point. So that was ENVB. That's my analysis on that one.
That's awesome. Do you mind if I add to that because
Yeah, for
you were
sure. Go ahead.
you were in it before I was, which is fantastic. This is definitely one of the pre-market plays that I know we both like to see. You know, it holding previous support even with low volume during the day. What I just now recognized, and I didn't recognize this earlier for some crazy reason. It was obviously it had news and it wasn't, it didn't have much volume. But if I look at like the 5 minute 5 day 5 minute, this was a previous spiker from one,
Yes,
two, three,
exactly.
four, 5 days ago. So whenever you see something like this that's already spiked, people kind of like think about it. It's in the back of their mind. Maybe they're bag holding it, but basically there'll be some hype there because people are going to want to push it anyway, right? They want to get their money out. Maybe they got stuck bag holding it, or maybe these guys who were short were just overly aggressive and decided, hey, I'm just going to hold this forever. I'm going to hold this to zero. So when I got the news and something like that, you could get volume to push this back the other way, in which it looked like it did happen that way. Furthermore, I did play it, but I got the bad part of the move. To be honest with you, it wasn't the greatest. I thought I had some great dip buys. I did call them out in Atlas chat also because I was looking. I was backside move, unfortunately, but we didn't know at the time, right? And
Yeah, you never know at the time.
right, and I was kind of buying the VWAP dip, and even when it came below that 460s, which kind of told me that it was weak, I even bought the 450 dip, thinking maybe this is one of those fake outs where they kind of trap the bull or the bears, and we get that push to fives. I was right there with you. I just never had a great position to take to get in and kind of ride it to fives. So I was just waiting for opportunity. Unfortunately, I got into the downtrend that never broke. So that was my side of ENVB. Maybe you guys played it late. It's one of those things where you have to be at the right place at the right time. And it looks like that, Mystic pretty much killed it, right, Gary? I mean, you did great on this play. Obviously, 490s is fantastic. If you got any, I'm sure you got some scales along the way there, 470s, 480s. And then fives, if we would have broke that, you may have got a halt like we did SSY, right? SSY was
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking for was a halt because I knew pretty much if it broke 5, it would probably skip tape a little bit and ideally get into that early morning halt was exactly what I was looking for. Um, but like you said, dip buying like you were doing. The thing about it is, and that kind of varies from day to day. If it had been a different day, for instance, like yesterday, where we had insane volume yesterday, great follow through, then those dip buys probably would have held true, and you would have caught some nice entries and averages, and we could have gone back and tested 5 and broke over. But again, hindsight's 2020.
Right, I agree. It's one of those things where you got to know if you are getting these dips that you still have somewhere to risk off of. So if you are wrong, like I was today, that you just get out, you live another day, and you find the next play. Do you mind if we go to SSY because I feel like I ran off to ENVB because of SSY. I thought
Yeah,
the market was going to be hot. We were going to see some stimulus come into the market. People were going to push some plays, and I thought maybe this one was going to be right with it. You know what I mean? As a second, especially because I thought that, it had news and it had volume to start the first, 15 minutes of the day. So let's go to SSY.
yeah, of course. So SSY, that ended up being the better mover of the day, in my opinion, because I say better mover simply because I feel like it gave more opportunities to get in and out of the trades. Um, Now, SSY, with the opening trade, it ran insane at open. You went from 329 to a potential high of 762. But unfortunately, I did not catch those low entries because E and VB was what I had my eye on during open, and I was in that trade. So once I got out of E and VB and I had seen that SSY had a lot of volume and was kind of still in the show, then of course it had my interest. And I know all of us talk a lot about not chasing anything, and if the moves happened already, then just sit out. And I completely agree with that. The initial move did happen, but with these momentum trades that we do with such high volume, there's more than one move usually, and that's the case with this one. So I missed the initial move, and once we hit 762, it's forming a small flag on the 5 minute that actually fails, and it comes down below VWAP, and then it starts curling a little bit. And this is where I got interested in the trade. So I took my first ads around the 475 to 480 range. Around there was where I was buying simply because watching the tape, I saw selling volume stop and I saw the volume switch over to buying volume. So the downward trend was stopping around that 475 area, and this is around 11 a.m. Is where I'm looking at on this one. So I was interested in this one because it had a great amount of volume today, and now the selling pressure is appearingly stopping. So I start taking some entries right around here, 470s to 480s. And my initial plan was to try to get a VWAP test and hold some shares to break above the VWAP. And something that I usually do a lot of times is when I'm taking entries so far below the VWAP, like this was around 480 where I'm adding. VWAP is at 540. So we got 60 cents right there, potential profit that VWAP would be a first target area for you. So when it gets to VWAP, the test around 540, I take a small amount of my position off just to go ahead and lock in a little bit of profit in case it doesn't break above VWAP. At least I'm getting some of my shares out. So that's what I did is I took a little bit off at 540 right around the VWAP, and thankfully this one was strong enough that it breaks above VWAP. So I was able to hold the rest of my shares for the next little pop, and I sold the rest of my shares around the 575 to 573 area is where I got some of my fills at. Um, and I was looking for 6 on that move. But it comes up, it tests 6 right there, and it goes above just a little bit, but it wasn't strong enough, so it comes back down. Um, and I actually bought the dip on it when it came back down below the VWAP again and started basing. So I caught the next move up above 6. That's kind of how I played SSY.
Yeah, I like it. That was fantastic. I mean, for our stream, it's kind of funny. You must have been had ENVB, right? So you seen how I play the second half of it? We were on SSY at the beginning, so literally we were flip
Nice.
flopping of where you were versus where we were. Kind of funny how that worked out today. So I'll show what I had pretty much for SSY. I didn't play very many stocks today, but SSY was beautiful, really. We talked about exactly what we thought could happen in the stream. We had our lines. I don't know if you're watching my stream, Gary, but
Yeah, yeah.
I have the resistance here at like 4 because of the basically descending triangle here, or just failed in general to hold this VWAP. So we looked at it later saying, hey, you know what? 4 is big resistance. If it does start testing that to open the day, this is kind of that channel area where we think it might kind of flail around in and consolidate and all that stuff. And I told everyone, hey, if we get a halt into going into high of days from pre-market, this thing might be just like, I forgot what stock it is right now, but there was another stock, I think maybe even yesterday, that basically got the halt and it just took off. So
Yes, exactly.
I was thinking the same thing here, and this is what we were talking about. And so many people in here banked. I'm so happy and proud of them because they got literally 450s, maybe worst case scenario. I wouldn't have chased past that, you know. But 450s up to sevens, I saw a lot of people banking on. I'm like, dude, you know, some people may have not even scaled here, which is crazy to think. So again, educational stream here. If this thing gives you 2 candles and it goes up 50%, 40%, I don't care if it's 15, 20%. Scale out something. Scale out 25% of your position at least. Be safe. You know, these things are going to come back. They don't just go up forever.
100%.
You know, so make sure you take those gains and be happy with them. Maybe it goes to $20 today. But in this market we've had recently, you haven't really seen that yet. You know, if that had happened, then maybe you play it differently. But since it hadn't, maybe we need to be a little bit more cautious and take the gains that are there, which you probably should do anyway, especially as new traders, and get used to it. Hitting or going for those home runs, don't be surprised if you strike out. That's just how it works, right? So base
Yeah,
hits,
of course.
base hits, base hits. Get your, get the score on the board and win the game every day. You know, this is how you do it. In, out, every day, base hits. It'll get you closer and closer to your goals, get you out of that PDT, and get you on with life. Really, it will change your life. It really will. What was your next stock that you played?
Yeah, yeah. So the next, before I get into that, something
Oh,
that you said right there that I really
yeah.
liked, is you talking about scaling out, and I don't feel like enough people are talking about how important that is. Um, a lot of viewers watching this, I'm sure, a large percentage of traders are still below PDT, and I'm not sure what your account sizes are. So sometimes if you're playing with smaller shares, then it's a lot easier to ride for, dollar moves up at a time, and it's great. And even if it drops a significant amount, if you have a smaller amount of shares, then your loss is probably not going to be that insane dollar amount. But I feel like it's important to always practice scaling, even right now, because one, scaling, it lets you compound gains. You're taking those base hits and it's making your account bigger and bigger. And when you start trading with larger shares, I promise you, you're going to have to scale, because if it starts going against you, then the loss is going to be horrendous. I know, um, my each position that I would take on this today would be 100,000 shares at a time. Is what I would buy in at one time. And if I'm holding 100,000 shares, like let's say a 30, 40 cent in the red, that's going to be a huge amount of money that I mean, why would I put that much risk on myself if I'm not scaling out? So, um, if you guys do want to do this for the long term and turn your accounts into really successful accounts, then I feel like scaling out early on in the game is so beneficial, because it teaches you how to scale for when you do have a larger account and you absolutely need to scale. Um, not even about the protecting yourself from a major loss. With a large share size, there is 0% chance that you can sell all of your shares at one certain price. There's just not going to be enough bids there. So you have to be strategic and sell out along the way up, on volume increases and new high of days. If you have a lot of positive momentum, maybe taking a couple thousand shares out each time you hit a new high of day might not be such a bad idea. Um, I just wanted to touch on that. You talking about base hits, and I
Yeah.
can't stress how important that is.
I totally agree. I think the issue, at least with my viewers, is they're below PDT. So I think what it is like they can only do 3 day trades per every 5 day period. They're
Of
trying to
course.
find better strategies so they can make it the most efficient, so they can continue just to get to that level 25K. Because I don't know exactly if you were like myself, where I had to fight and grind to 25K, and then
Yes,
at that
100%.
point I was free to try to make those moves. But even when I got to 25K, I played very conservative because I didn't want to go right back below it, and I do remember getting knocked back under it, and I freaked out because I'm like, great, they're gonna lock my account and all this stuff. But I mean, all in all, guys, you really just gotta worry about learning this little stuff now, because later, like he said, you're gonna have to learn to scale. This is not something that you can just go on and be like, well, I have a $10 billion account. Let me just buy 10 billion shares here at 469, which is the lows.
Yeah,
You're gonna get filled from 469 to maybe even 510 with that many shares.
yeah,
And then it's
100%.
gonna come back down on you instantly because you were the person who ran it up. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And when you are trying to grow above PDT, that is the hardest, in my opinion, the hardest part of your trading is, I mean, because you are limited, you have 3 day trades per week. So it definitely limits you on what you're able to do. And that's why it's important to only take the best setups to give yourself the best chance on each of those trades.
Agreed. Is there another strategy you have? Like I've told them to try to make 3 separate accounts, maybe even like if they have like 5,000, make it like 1,500, and the remaining 2,000. To try to get more of those trades in, they get more practice. They play with a smaller account with less. What's the word for it? There's just less risk involved with losing a lot of money when they're playing so small.
Yeah, so I mean, I know I've tweeted about this a lot, and the cool thing about trading is there's so many different strategies that work. I don't think you're going to find two traders that trade exactly the same. Although you and I trade very similar, there's things that we do that are a little bit different from one another, and we take things at different entries based on how we see it. But just speaking from personal experience, from how I trade now, and especially how I traded back then, I'm under the school of thought that I like to consolidate my finances into one trading account, and I like to go really heavy on a solid setup trade. That way, let's say you take that 5,000 account, and if you go all in on one trade and it pops 10%, then you just made $500, and now you have a $5,500 trading account. And it kind of compounds quickly, but on the opposite side of that coin, if you lose 10%, then you just lost $500. So there are trade-offs, but um, for me, what really works with my personality and how I trade is I like to go really heavy into each trade that I go into.
Agreed. We have someone with a hot mic in the Discord, so please make sure you guys are muting yourself so we don't have to mute you. If I mute you, you may not be able to get your questions in later, so just heads up with that, guys.
Yeah,
Take us to the next trade if you would like.
yeah, I got you. So the next trade that I would like to look at is CANF. Um, Now this one is a little bit gross on the intraday chart right here, but there was an opportunity to make a little bit of money on it. Um, so like I said, in pre-market, I really wasn't that active. And with this one, the bulk of the move did happen in pre-market. And I kind of missed out on most of that because um, I know you guys like to get up insanely early, and I know you start with your stream and you're already up and at it at like 6 and 7 a.m. But most days I sleep in until 8 a.m. Eastern time. So, and that does make me miss out on some moves. But nonetheless, when I show up at 8 a.m., I do check back and see what's been moving from 7 to 8, or even the crackhead hours. Some people getting up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, that's
I
just too
keep my eye
crazy.
on what's been moving. But with this one, it had a huge amount of volume, and at open, you're met with a lot of sell-off. And one thing I would like to point out with this one, and this happens, and I'm sure you can speak to this as well. I'm sure you've already talked about it in your streams in the past, but if you have a mover like CANF in pre-market that's kind of really going for it in pre-market and kind of making its move before the market even opens, a lot of times when the bell rings, what you're met with is sell-off, because you got people in at super low entries from pre-market, and it causes people to get a little bit scared at market opens, and it's kind of like the domino effect. This person's like, okay, I'm just going to sell my shares here before the next person does, and then someone sees this guy selling his shares, and it causes the next guy to sell his, and so forth. That's kind of what happened with CANF. Is when the opening bell rang, we got a lot of sell-off. Um, but even when this happens, it doesn't mean that I take it off of my radar. And I don't take it off of my radar simply because it was very active in pre-market. It had great volume this morning, so of course I'm interested in it. So with a stock like CANF, seeing what it did in pre-market and knowing what stocks generally like to do that kind of go for it in pre-market as opposed to just kind of consolidating and waiting for open, then I was kind of reverse engineering this one. Like with ENVB, I talked about in pre-market it was consolidated, and I liked that because I knew that it had its chance to make its run after the bell rang. With this one, I kind of had to wait, let it do its little sell off, and then start consolidating around noon to 12:30 Eastern time. It's kind of consolidated down here, and the sell off has kind of stopped at this point, and you're trading a little bit sideways. So I kind of liked it right below $3. It was flirting with the $3 level a little bit before 12:30. It made its way up to like 310 and kind of came back down and was hanging out around 3 in the high 290s. And for me, the way I look at charts is if I see something hanging right below the whole dollar, and the whole dollar in this case being $3, if you got a price that's just hanging right around below that, it tells me that, it kind of wants to make a run to break above that whole dollar. So with this one, that's kind of what I was thinking. So at about 12:30, I started buying shares in the 290s and up above $3. Um, so I started buying shares here, and then volume starts rolling into it, and we break above the 9 EMA. And for me, when something, either holds the 9 EMA or breaks above the 9 EMA, that's a really good sign for me personally. So that happened, and then more volume started coming into the stock, and we get a little bit of momentum, and the stock goes all the way to like 335 to 340, and it gets held down by the 50 SMA. And that was kind of the end of the move on that one, simply because the volume today wasn't strong enough to send the stock back above the 50 SMA. So once I saw that the 50 could not break, then I kind of, accepted the fate. And as it's coming back down, I went ahead and sold out as well.
Agreed. This is pretty much, I didn't play this at all. I think you nailed that. It was a perfect like double bottom kind of bounce. Did I lose you?
Are we good?
All right, yeah. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. Hold on, check. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, sorry, I clicked off of Discord. It's a bad habit.
Oh, no, you're good.
Here, I'll go ahead and give you my 2 cents here. Let me try to do it. So I think you nailed it perfectly, especially here where it was kind of breaking down. And people who were short on it were like, "Well, I guess we're not going to go down any further." There's no more panic. You like nailed this perfectly with the double bottom almost there, and then I never really thought about using the 50 on the inverse under the VWAP like that. So that's really cool. I learned something here. I'll definitely keep that in my notes specifically, just in case for the future. I didn't even think about it. Mostly for me, CANF, I played it in the morning, or I wanted to play it off the ascending triangle. I know we were watching it. I don't think I played it, but it got the open and then pretty much failed. It got that kill candle pretty much, and it just sunk the volume or the momentum really. So we're both on this, man. It's crazy, but mostly I think we're both on this because one thing, or maybe a few things, right? It's a top gainer. It was the number one to start with, right?
Yes, it was.
It had all the volume, especially with pre-market. It was setting up a pattern, and we love patterns because that's just psychological stuff. We can predict what's going to happen next.
Hmm.
And obviously, we had news, so we thought, hey, why not look at this one? You played it the right way. I liked it. I think people can learn from this, but I definitely learned something there too.
Yeah, the 50, I use it a lot as resistance like that right there. But I also love using the 50 SMA as my like main support line on these momentum trades. Like if something comes down, um, I would say as high as 90% of the time, the 50 is at least going to hold for a little bit. You're going to get somewhat of a bounce off of the 50 SMA if you are using it as support. In this instance, we were just using it as resistance, and unfortunately, it wasn't able to break above the 50 and go test VWAP.
Agreed. I'll put it on my. I'll put it in my backpack. Now I know for the future. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see.
Um,
Let me go down your P&L here. Did you have more to add to that, or do you want to move on?
no, that was pretty much all of that one.
Okay.
I did take an additional entry in it later on in the day, thinking that it would kind of try to test VWAP one more time. And this resulted in, pretty much everything died off going into this afternoon, and I didn't really see many setups left. And I knew that this was a top mover early on. So I was thinking maybe buyers would circle back to this one, but it didn't work out. So I just gave back a couple thousand on it later on in the day.
What did you play at 290s on the dip, or
Uh,
were you downtrend break? Maybe here at like 292, I expect.
yeah, right around there. I was thinking that it would get back above 3 and maybe try for another run, but it never did. So, it ended up getting me for a small loss right there.
Gotcha. Totally agreed. I saw you played what was it, ENZ? That was also on the top gainers list. Tell me how you played that.
Yeah, so let me pull that one up.
This one's all over the place, so I
It
can't wait.
So yeah, it really was all over the place. And this was one of them that I actually heard it on the volume scanner with trade ideas. I heard that volume was coming into this stock, so I was a little bit interested in it. And um, what happened was it held the 9 EMA, and unfortunately, I didn't catch that low entry right there, like around 420 and below.
What
Um,
what time?
at about 10 a.m.,
Okay,
10:05 to 10:10.
gotcha. Okay, I
So
gotcha.
I
I
yeah, I
see.
kind of heard volume hitting right there, and I looked and I saw that it had a huge candle shortly after open, followed by another continuation candle, and then it came down and tested that 9 EMA. And this was not one that I had pulled up on my charts when it did that, or I could have snagged those 420 entries. But once I heard volume rolling into it, when I pulled it up, it was like 430s when I first pulled it up. So I actually had to chase a little bit. And my average ended up being like around 440 on this one. Because it just had a nice move and it held the 9 EMA. So I actually chased a little bit on the volume scanner, and then this one was just a short-lived little pop. It went from like 440s um, up to the high 470s to 480s right there. And again, similar with my first trade of the day, what was it, ENVB? I was kind of thinking this one might break above $5 and have a stronger move, but it just didn't happen today. So I ended up having to sell when I saw that it couldn't break into the 490s, and I think I ended up having 470s sales.
Yeah, I think you played it well. I super crazy. So much resistance at fives from pre-market. Had the earnings. I don't know what the other news was. I know there was like news on one of these that had like a uh, some price target that was like way beyond what the price was. I'm hoping it's not this one, but probably not this
Yeah,
one.
to be honest, I think this is the first day that I've ever traded this stock. And that's the cool thing about momentum trading is you really don't have to know exactly what the company does itself or really anything about the company. If you are just doing day trades and trading momentum, then you're trading volume based on what you see on the chart and what you see on the tape. So that's pretty much how I trade most things. I really couldn't even tell you what E and Z does, what their company is, or whatever. I can just read volume.
But you can make how much money off of them? Was that I can't read it from this far away. I don't have my
Uh, on
glasses.
on that one, I made like 3,700.
Oh, but you don't know nothing about the company. Weird.
I
That's weird,
know,
isn't it,
right?
guys? I tell these guys all the time, like, hey, it has news. I don't really care what the news is. It can be fluff, and that's great and all. But really, you just need to have those catalysts. You got to have a reason for it to be at the top of the list, and it'll help you a lot. You don't really have to know what the company does, know all the insider filings and stuff like that. I mean, it is helpful. I'm not gonna say it's not because there is definitely like, a lot of, what's the word for it? Not liquidation. I can't think of the word. Basically, where they can sell off a bunch of shares to you because they've already kind of bought it. Offerings is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And things like that. Dilution. That's the word. Thank you, chat.
Dilution.
Dilution. No one even said in the chat to help me out. Thanks a lot, guys. But I figured it out, okay? My slow brain takes time. I don't want to hear about this tomorrow. But anyway, a lot of resistance was at fives, and you nailed another one there. It's really good. I can see that you're playing very tight with it too, because the market's been slow. You're like, hey, it's giving me 10%. I'm gonna go ahead and take some gains here. If not, all of them. By all means, if you start seeing it be weak at that resistance level, why not take some off the table? Because you don't want to get stuck holding the bag, right? So
Exactly. And like this one, like I said, I had the chase, so I wasn't able to get a full fill, but I still had 60,000 shares. And, I don't want to hold 60,000 shares down into the depths of Hades and
right.
take a huge loss. So, when you play like that, sometimes you do have to be tight with it. Unless, it is something that has a strong uptrend on the day with a lot of volume, and you're strategically buying dips on the way down. Like if you're buying at smart levels and you're adding to your position to get your average lower, then that's different. But even at that point, there has to be a cutoff point. If it breaks below all of your trend lines and all of your EMAs, then you kind of have to accept defeat on it and move on.
Yeah, agreed. We'll get to the questions right after this is over. He's going to go over Jill, and then we'll do some Q&A with people who are in the voice chat on Atlas. So I know we have tons of questions just dropping in the chat with EMAs, SMAs, and all that, because obviously you use a 9 EMA and a 20 EMA. Well, I'm using a 13 and a 20 SMA. So I'm sure
Got
we'll
you.
get into that. We're probably going to get into it. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it yet. Don't freak out, okay? If you use what I
Yeah, we'll
use,
take
it
care of all of
works.
that.
And if you use what he uses, it also works. So don't think because he's got one thing, I got another, you guys are gonna like spaz out, go crazy, and have all of them. Don't do that. Just we'll figure it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Goodness
But
gracious.
yeah, getting right into Jill, this is the last ticker that I traded today, and I actually took a loss on Jill. I lost almost 7K on it. Um, and with this one, it was really more of a, you know, me looking at it thinking that it might get a continuation later at some point in the day because this is a ticker that sometimes volume likes to flow into periodically throughout the day. And it had a strong uptrend right after open from like the mid fives, and it went to 948. And with this one, it was kind of just consolidating like it still is right now, right below the VWAP. So I took a position in the 780s. That was my average. It was a 784 average, and this is something that I held for a little while today. Um, So I had like a 784 average, and then kind of what happened to me on this one, if you look at um, right at 11:05 a.m. that big red knife candle.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what did me in on this one. It's just something I was holding shares on for a while, thinking that it was going to be good, and then that big red knife candle happened, and with this one, it's spready. And what I mean by spready is it's a very thin stock, and the bid and the ask are not like within 1 cent from each other. So this is one that can drop down, a dollar at a time in a split second. So, I didn't want to really risk that. So I just went ahead and took my loss on it and I just cut it and moved on.
Yeah, super low volume on this stock. I don't think I even seen it throughout the day, but I see what you were going for. You got your big spike, and then you're looking for obviously just like a ABCD, some
Yes.
consolidation, and then it breaking out. You guys know what ABCD is. They literally think every chart's an ABCD. I'm trying to get them right, but I mean everybody can see an ABCD if you look hard enough. I promise in a lot of these stocks, but really this is what it looks like he was going for. You have an A here, and then you have your dips. You're looking for this to hold this level because you have this double bottom. Totally agree with you. Love it. And unfortunately, got that big red candle, and that is pretty scary. I would probably, to say it nicely, poop my pants and probably got out also. So
Yeah,
totally
it
agree
was
with you.
yeah, it was just one, you accept the loss on that, move on before it turns into a big loss. Like I don't want to I would rather take a 7K loss than risk a 100K loss. So I was happy to take that loss.
Right. And we have a lot of people in the room who are like, oh my God, he's taking 100K positions. But once you guys have done this for so long, it's just a method. It's just like a metric. It doesn't matter how big we're going or small we're going. It's all about that percentage basis. If, how often are you correct about the play, how consistent you are, and then how much, you have your risk tolerance in line. And then your sizing comes as you guys perfect your edge, right? And then over
Yes.
time, you would just create more and more wealth. So don't freak out about the position sizes he's taking. He's worked himself there. He's got comfort. He's got the confidence because he just knows why he's playing it. So it's a whole nother ball game once you guys have put in at least, I would say at least 9 months of really learning the stuff from people who trade well and aren't like always just taking like 100 trades a day. You really got to be consistent and pick your trades wisely. As you can see, he took like 5 trades today. Is that right? I mean,
Yeah,
five
five
different
trades.
tickers. It's a slower day. 5 tickers is kind of a lot for me, but I mean, just in general, if he's taking 3 to 5, that's not bad. When I started trading, I was taking like, I don't know, 15, 20 a day. Anything that would move, anything that Pepper would
Yep, I've been
say,
there.
anything that people would tweet about, anything that was in Atlas Discord, which wasn't Atlas at the time, I was chasing. I was the same way as you guys. So a lot of people here are just like all over the place, like, oh no, I'm never gonna be successful. I'm never gonna see, be able to quit my 9 to 5. But you guys have every opportunity to do that. You just got to take it one step at a time.
Yeah, and I would add to that, when we were coming up, when we were growing our accounts, Atlas, like you said, at first it was not Atlas. And even when it did become Atlas, it was very small. Like I'm talking, maybe a couple thousand members at max in Atlas. And there was definitely not a Twitch stream like you have now, or there wasn't as much help from people on Twitter. So there's never been an easier time than right now to really become successful at this game.
For sure, I totally agree with it. I think that many people kind of I think there's so many things out there now, Mystic, that they're kind of getting pulled in every direction of what they should do and how they should do it, who's the best trader, and all this kind of like, I don't want to say political game, but it's just everyone's got their attention, right? And they can't focus because of it. And that's why we made streams like this, or at least for myself. I literally started the stream, I told everybody this. I didn't want people to lose their money on GME when it was going to the moon. Okay, I knew that I've been there. Mystic's been there. We came into the game. We got lucky. We knocked it out of the park. And then what happened after? Mystic, do you remember? I mean, I don't. Maybe you kept all your gains. I threw all my gains back away.
During the GameStop week,
No, I'm saying in general. When you started trading, and you just started, you got lucky. You hit a couple homers.
oh when I first started trading, I would say that I lost consistently for maybe a year straight. There would be a couple small green weeks along the way. Like if I made like $50 in a week back when I was first starting, I was just like, oh my God, I am so rich right now. Um, but it was a consistent struggle for almost a year. And then, after you've been around for that long and you've seen all of the things that you've done wrong, then it's process of elimination. Like, okay, none of these things work. Let me just get rid of them. And then you start trying the things that do work because you've got rid of most everything that doesn't work.
Agreed. It's just, as you said, process of elimination. It's sharpening the pencil or the iron every day. You're finding one thing every day. You're like, I don't want to do that ever again. And then the next day, nope, not going to do that ever again. And you just literally do that for about 9 months, and then you'll finally you'll have something to like kind of stabilize yourself where you're kind of going even. You're going sideways for a little while,
Yes.
trying to determine your next edge, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think I dropped something on Twitter a while back. I think even Brad Mullins did. It was like the basically the chart of a trader. At first they come in, they make a lot of money, and then they lose it all, and then they kind of go sideways for a while, and they kind of find that consolidation slash edge to find themselves profitable, or at least enough to not be a super red or bleeding their account anymore. And it goes on and
Yep.
on and on. I don't. You've seen that, right?
Of course. Yeah, I definitely remember that. I have it saved on my photos on my phone, actually.
And you totally agree that that would be something that people could look at and be like, yes, that'll be me one day.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I was saying when I was losing consistently throughout that first year. And I would see some of the successful traders at the time posting, their profits on that day. Then it would just be more motivation to keep me moving forward because I understood that, hey, if there's somebody else out here that has been doing this longer than me and are able to make this much money, then it must be a time game. If they can make this money, then I can too. It's just a matter of when I will be able to make this. And so that was something that was motivational to me, is to see other traders making money like that because I knew, hey, if they can do it, I can too. There's no reason I couldn't.
Yeah, it all comes down to when you get that consolidation phase that you don't give up. And I think that, how
Exactly.
many times did you think about giving up? Was it a few or?
Honestly, I never thought about giving up one time because I went all in on this. Like, I didn't know how long it would take me. And I actually remember, this is years ago. I sat down with my girlfriend and like I told her, like, hey, I have no idea how long this is going to take me. I don't know when I'll make money. And I already had it planned out in my head. Like, if I went bankrupt, then, I could save up a little bit of money from work and I guess go to the public library and trade off of their internet if I had to build myself back up. Um, but it's just all a time game.
Wow, I'd never heard that before. Man, I can't even imagine going to the library. That's awesome. That's
I
really
had
cool
never
to hear you
seen
say
that,
that. That's humbling
but
for
I was
me.
prepared.
The fact that
I had
you
never.
even got to that point where you're like, my stop loss is going to the library and trading from the internet there because I
Yeah.
can't afford my own. That's crazy. Like, that's awesome to hear because for me, I mean, I've been broke a few times in my life, and this was the third time I was pretty much broke before trading. And I basically was like, I'm I'm trying to find what to do in my life. I'm so bored. I don't love what I do. I work for
Uh huh.
people who don't appreciate me. And you know what it is? Like, they act like they do, and then you put in your 2 weeks notice, and all of a sudden it's like, well, this guy's trash. Let's get the next guy in here. They just don't care.
Yes, it's a cycle.
Yeah, it's just a rotating door that's endless. But I digress on that. Let's. How much time you have left? You have like 30 minutes to go through a Q&A with everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Okay. So let's open up the floor to Discord one at a time, please. I know it's going to be a little tough, but hopefully we can get this cleanly done. Do some Q&As with members in here. It's I have to unmute everyone, so give me 1 minute to unmute everyone, and then find out if anyone has a hot mic, and we'll take some questions. 1 second, all right?
Yep.
Yo, yeah,
Yeah.
I had a Awesome. Yeah. Hey, this is Buffy. I was wondering about how when you get into those trades, like the ENZ trade, I believe that you took for kind of just a small 20 or 30-cent rip, like how are you defining your risk for something like that? Are you super tight, like 10 cents, or do you give yourself a little more leeway based on the chart itself? Because it seems like if you're going to take a super, short scalp like that, that your risk is going to be really tight.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'm glad that you brought that one up actually because, and I've actually, talked about this before, but I've never had the right way to explain it until now. So I see a lot of people that, comment on my Twitter like, "Hey, how, many cents do you allow for your stop loss to be?" And the short answer is it is different for every single chart. It depends on the chart itself. So like ENZ, like I said, I chased this one because I heard it hitting the volume scanner, and then by the time that I looked at it, it had already bounced above the 9 EMA, and so it was already moving in an upward trend at that point. So I slapped in, and for me personally, my risk was if it broke back below and closed below that 9 EMA. So I was buying it because it held the 9 EMA. So that means that, if it closed right back down below the 9 EMA, then I would sell it. Because, if you're going to buy something because it holds a level, you also have to respect enough to sell if it doesn't hold a certain level, if that makes sense.
Can I add to that also?
Yeah, for sure.
So I know he plays off the 9 EMA on this. Also, Buffy, if you look at this chart, whenever he did buy, that's fantastic where he got in. You can find yourself that uptrend, and I would risk off that just in case. This big red candle that came in after pretty much the double top. At that point, you got to know, hey, this isn't looking so hot. That would kind of be my 2 cent to add on to that because pretty much his EMA thing works. Also, it's just
Yeah.
we're two different traders that trade really close to the same, but we're seeing two different things that are also very similar in its own perspective. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think defining risk is something that a lot of traders really need to focus on. They see, take these good entries, but oftentimes the risk can be a little too loose or too tight and you'll get stopped out. Like I probably would have been stopped out on this one, Mac, like right on that lower wick candle. So you're saying you wait for the 5-minute candle to actually close before you make your decision on that?
Yeah, so that's the safer way to do it is wait for the 5 minute to actually close above the 9 EMA because the advantage in doing this is, well, what you give up first off is you don't have the lowest entries possible because you're actually waiting for it to close. But what you do have in your favor is you know that it has closed above it and you can buy in a little bit safer because it's not as up in the air as if it will. It already has at this point. So then you buy in because of that. Um, but with me, like I said, I caught this one a little bit later than I would have liked. I would have loved to have 420 right on the 9 EMA, but by the time that I could get the chart pulled up and get my ads, then I actually got a 440 entry.
Thanks. That's really helpful, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Anyone with a, I'm sure there's lots of questions. So if you want to just unmute and try to just politely, hey, and then we'll
Hey,
kind of
I've
take
got
you.
a question.
Go ahead.
So it's pretty much the same topic, but in general, if what is the stop loss percentage? Is like 5% too much, 2%? And I expect this to be a quick answer, so I don't want to hold up people's time. But I understand what he's talking about as far as just looking at the chart, but on a generic term, do you have a term just for your stop loss?
Yeah, so for me, like I said, I trade really heavy at all times. So um, I go by account size percentage, not necessarily on each individual trade, but if like I'm down 5% in my total account balance in a day, then I'll kind of cut it. So that would be if I'm red by about $75,000, then that's my cutoff point.
Yeah, I think that's a super hard question to like give you like a black or white answer on. It's more to your threshold of kind of how you're playing your account. But personally, I don't. If you had to make a round number ever, Hopefully you're getting these dip buy entries, and then you don't have to risk more than like 2.5%. Honestly,
Yeah,
if you look at it roundabout, like I wouldn't take bigger losses than that or bag hold, because if you're seeing these patterns set up, you're buying the dips already. So if you're letting it go 2.5% lower, it's probably trend changing at that point. Honestly.
yeah, I would
Yeah,
agree.
I found myself I lost today due to it, and I didn't have a tight stop loss, and that cost me about 2K today.
Yeah, just know that it's hard to do, I guess, especially when you're a new trader, but always just chase those dips. When people are selling off, and as long as you can see that there's bullishness to it and there's some kind of trend line there, some kind of support, chase that. Go after that dip, and then at that point you're already in a good position, because chances are it's going to get some kind of other buyer in it, and you'll have a lot more of a safeness to it, and then you can just bounce out of it. Worst case scenario. I know it's kind of scary at first, but once you get it down and you see this over and over, you're like, oh, this is a ascending triangle. Other people are seeing the same thing as you are. So with that confidence, they'll start picking it up too.
I got a question for both Gary and Bob.
Go ahead.
So it's kind of more focused on like your guys' trading. I kind of came in late, so I don't know if you guys touched on it, but kind of on your experiences coming up as a trader. So obviously you don't know me, but I'm kind of new to trading. I'm like 6 months in now, and in those 6 months, I've kind of put a lot of effort into learning how to trade, because it's something I want to do as a profession personally. So my biggest thing is how long it kind of took you guys to really find a grasp on your craft, and if you guys had any like big roadblocks in the way. So like obviously my first big roadblock has been this month correction, if you want to call it, where obviously I've lost a good chunk of my portfolio. But if you guys had experienced any major roadblocks like that personally, down the road when you guys first started out. So that's my question on that.
I got it. Let me start. All right, so number one, congratulations on choosing stock market. It'll change your life, all right? Let's just start there. Secondly, I'm going to say that, there is a lot of opportunity in the market for you to become very wealthy. So again, congrats on that. First part. What was the second question again? I forgot.
Just if there was like any major roadblocks that you guys
Oh,
had
yeah.
early on in your
I got you.
career.
Yeah, there's a ton. It's more you're learning. You got 6 months into it, and you have a ton to learn. It's just about what kind of time you're putting in. Are you putting in 40, 50 hours a week in the live trading market, and you creating an edge every single day? There's always going to be I'm hearing myself talk. That's what's killing me. There's going to be a lot of roadblocks, just because you have to learn all these patterns. You're going to have to learn sit on hands and just discipline in general. So I tell everyone 10,000 hours is what you need to put in. And then I think after that, you could become pretty comfortable. But there's a lot. There really is.
Yeah, I would definitely agree to that. And to answer your question as well, for me, like I said, I lost consistently. It was, I think, right around 10 months in total that I had, losing consistently. One of the major roadblocks that I had, and you guys might not even have ever heard of this broker, but way back in the day, there was an old school broker called Ustock Trade. Um, Definitely do not recommend Ustock Trade. It's peer-to-peer trading. It's not even real shares on the market. But the draw to Ustock Trade was there's really no PDT rule. So um, there's so many issues with Ustock trading. Do not go there under any circumstances. But I was there, and there was no PDT rules. So when I was a very novice trader, I had no idea what I was doing. I could trade 100 times a day, every day, and this is very dangerous for new traders because you're chasing anything that moves. You're just buying randomly. You're hoping that something goes up because you think there's a chance that you can make money, and you're not actually trading with a strategy. So that was a major roadblock. And then for me as a newer trader, my Achilles heel for the longest time was trading right at the open bell, because right at the opening bell it is extremely volatile. And if you're not confident in your trading, or if you're not exactly certain as to what's happening at opening bell, then it can provide a lot of opportunity for you to lose massively.
Agreed. I think most of my problem was just psychological things. Obviously, the PDT was a big hurdle itself, um, and just in general, making sure you're buying like the sell, buying when people sell and selling when people are buying, and learning how to scale out. That was pretty tough for me because my brain is so opposite for some reason. Even though it's logical, it's really hard to put to practice.
Agreed.
And
Thanks,
that's
thanks, guys. I
psychological.
appreciate it.
I was wondering about the plateau. So, like, you had some certain number in your account, let's say PDT, $25,000, and then how do you move on past that? Like, you get like a lot of like here that a lot of people get stuck at the certain number, and then they have hard time moving on.
Yeah, do you want to start, Rocket?
I'm kind of gonna go ahead. You can go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, this is some people do get stuck at certain numbers, like let's say 25,000, and you have a hard time trading well above that number. Because if you're trading at 25,000, then your trading style is tailored specifically for that type of share size. And then sometimes when you start growing your account, you're taking bigger share size. So that's going to have larger profits and larger losses. So that can mess with you in the beginning. Um, so what I did and what I recommend other people to do is scale up slowly. Like let's say that you have 25,000 and you're comfortable trading with that amount of money and you're consistent with that, then slowly go up to like 30,000 and then stay there for a few weeks. Get comfortable with 30,000, and then once you feel good with that share size, then slowly start taking it up to 50,000 and et cetera, et cetera. But get to certain amounts in your account and trade with that share size for a little while before you try to grow your account to, a bigger share size.
Yeah, I think that'll help a lot. If you're having some troubles in certain areas, maybe you're just getting stuck you're at 25K. Is even for myself, when I first got there, I just literally would play with like $1,000, $2,000 because I didn't want to get knocked back under it. What you have to really think about, and I think most people's issues, and I think this is where I was going to go with the last question until I blanked, was you have to know the market you're in. So regardless if you made 1,000 to 25,000 in the last 2 months, right? And you get into a market like we have right now, you don't expect yourself to just get to 50 or be on that same pace. Things are going to change. You're going to not profit as fast as you were, in a slow market like this, unless you're changing to a bear in this market, right? So just know that you can't go with consistent, like, hey, my goal is going to be $1,000 every day for the rest of my life. Because with the market, just it zigzags, goes back and forth, high volatility, low volatility. Penny stocks are going. Okay, penny stocks are dead. So just attack the market that's there and size appropriately is kind of where I would go with it. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I was also wondering about the EMAs. So I know that Gary trades with 5-minute charts. And like on my broker, the 5-minute chart EMAs and 1-minute chart EMAs, they're on different levels. Like, is that the same on other brokers, or is it just my broker specifically? And like, how do you trade if it's on different levels? Like, which one do you base your entries on, the 1-minute or 5-minute mostly?
Yeah, so that's not just your broker, it's with any broker. On different time frames, the moving averages are going to be at different levels based on what time frame that you're in. So sometimes if we have like for instance, find a good one. Maybe from today. Let's see. Let's look at SSY perhaps. So at open, it had the huge volume spike, and as you can see on the 5-minute time frame, it's really not close to any certain EMA whatsoever. But then when you do switch it over to the 1-minute, it's a lot closer to the 9 EMA. So in instances like if you have something that's really extended, like if it's in parabolic mode or if it's just straight up, then I would recommend switching over to maybe the 1-minute so you can have your lines a little bit closer um, to the actual price level. And again, this is all personal preference. Some traders are just naturally going to trade better with the 1 minute chart, and some traders are going to trade better with the 5 minute chart. I don't feel like that's really the most important thing to kind of stress yourself out about, because it's just about which time frame that you personally feel more comfortable with. But the VWAP, however, is going to be at the same price on all different time frames.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Hi, guys. Thank you, first of all, for everything that you do. I have a question. Are there any typical indicators or predictors that a stock will be a multi-day runner? Is it an FDA approval? Is it a price target change? Anything in your experience? Thank you.
Okay. For me, I like to do multi-day runners off of just saying that it's like if I look at the daily, like let me look at it and see if I can get one here. I like to basically say it's the first green day and it's got some kind of news and it's spiked up and it's pretty much over some resistance previously. I don't really care what the catalyst is for the most part. I think a lot of it really comes down to the overall market conditions for me. And then if you wanted to swing it off that, then that's what you're looking for. You're looking for some dips into the afternoon or just some consolidation before close. I personally want that stock to kind of, I mean, some of them you want to finish strong and that's fantastic. But if they had some news and maybe they consolidated above VWAP and they kind of finished on a dip, I find that some of those still actually gap up on the second day for me. It just depends on the overall market and kind of like what gapped up the next day. Is it Bitcoin's or is it some kind of sector hype? It really, you have to have a lot more information than just like what the catalyst might be. It's the market, it's the sector, it's what's hot now, what is social media talking about. That's kind of my thoughts on multi-day runners.
Yeah, I completely agree. You brought up a good point about looking at the chart. Like if it's the first green day, that's a big thing that I look at as well. And also the market conditions. Like a few days back when we had EYES, when it had, an insane couple day run. And that was all due to market conditions. SPY had been dropping off of a cliff like all week. And then we had this ticker, EYES, that had an insane amount of volume. I forget which day the volume started coming into eyes, but it ran all day that day, and the volume was so strong that day that people kept trading it the next day. So that made for a continuation and a multi-day runner. And also, like, say that we had an eyes type runner today, and then tomorrow it's absolutely dead. Like there's no other stocks that are different that are moving that day. Then a lot of times traders circle back to the previous day's runner and start trading that again.
Agreed. I think you just have to learn kind of off the daily charts. Just keep looking off daily swing charts and watching the catalyst and how the market's doing. I totally agree with Gary on this one for sure.
Yeah, real quick one, guys. Here, that's Buffy again.
Hi,
I know
Buffy.
you're taking some pretty large size on these momentum swings. I'm just curious how either of you scale out. So do you typically start taking off like maybe right like a dime up, or are you typically holding longer? I know everyone's different about this. I'm just curious how you personally play it.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Gary.
yeah. So I trade it like I said. Like I treat every ticker differently. And it's just based on the volume coming into that stock. Like as long as we have accelerating volume, then I'm going to be riding it, and I'll scale out. Like say for instance, sometimes you get into a position, and then when volume comes in really quickly, you might be up 30 or 40 cents in a matter of seconds. So you wouldn't even have time to scale out like, a dime higher. So in that instance, like if a huge volume spike comes in, maybe take a couple thousand shares off and kind of see if it's going to continue. But other than that, like I really like to scale a little bit of shares each time we hit a new high of day. That's something that's really big for me. Like when we're moving up, like if you hit new high of day, then I take some off, and then we consolidate for a minute and go for another new high of day. I take some off, but Also, if a big red knife candle starts coming in, like accelerated selling, then it kind of makes my decision clear for me that hey, the move's over. I have to bail.
Yeah, for me, it's just like putting resistance areas out there because if you're playing any chart, you should pretty much already know like, hey, $5 psychological has been a previous problem for this stock. Once it gets close to this area, I'm going to scale out a little bit before it. Maybe you scale out like a quarter or half your position, and then after that, you're gonna say, well, I'm gonna let it test $5 and see if we can get a short squeeze. And then at that point, you could scale out another 25 and maybe hold the last, depending on how hot the volume is or the market. I do my scaling on stream. I pretty much kind of walk through it with people just because they always ask, like, how do I know where to sell? And I think the hardest thing is just understanding you're selling into the buyers, you're selling into the short squeezes, you're selling where there is volume coming in, where it's really easy as a new trader to be like, oh man, we're just going and going. I'm just going to keep holding. We're going to go to we're going to go to $10, So that's kind of how I do mine, if that helps you.
Stocks only go up, bro.
Right.
Yeah, I
Not so much
appreciate
in the
that.
last month though, but yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
Hey, hello.
usually even taking some off the top right away for me actually just psychologically kind of helps me stay in the trade. So I might take off like 10% like on that first little pop, and it just kind of helps me
If that helps you, keep
stick
doing
in.
it. Honestly, keep doing it because that's
Yeah.
huge.
Hey, quick question.
Thanks,
How
homies.
far do you guys
Welcome.
look in the left, like to determine support and resistance?
As far as you can go, brother. Honestly, if you just look left and look where that volume candle is to find out where it got stuck at last, and just kind of the more information you have, the better. It's kind of how I see that. I look as far as back as doing weeklies, daily charts, 1 hour charts, even like today. I didn't really do this, but I should have on the stock we were talking about earlier, where it ran 5 days ago, got news today, and then it got another pop. So that was my fault for not looking back that far. I could have definitely knew more about that and banked off of it harder.
Hey
Yeah, I
guys.
agree with that.
Oops, sorry. Hey guys, thanks again for doing this. Question, like you were talking about when you're moving up to PDT. In your experiences when you were doing that, did you focus a little more on kind of really big swing trades? And then if so, doesn't that kind of limit your cash if you do find something really setting up?
So what I did is, I'm not that much of a swing trader. Like 90% of the time, I'm, exclusively all day trades. But when I was growing my account, I still really didn't swing trade for that long because, like you said, it would take you out of the game on any given day. So, what I would do is I would try to do an overnight every single night because you can do one of them every night throughout the week. So, that gives you like 5 trades right there, plus your 3 day trades that you still have. So, for me, that's kind of what I did to maximize my trade count is do an overnight each day, and do my 3 day trades. And my overnight criteria back then would be something that had, the highest volume that day, or something in the same sector that was similar to that highest volume runner.
Yeah, mine was like first screen days, anything that had volume. But you want to again be in the hotter market for it. I wouldn't. It's harder right now for you guys who are 25K and under because there's really not much carrying over for the next day, and it seems like things are just kind of gapping up, so you can't even get in them to capitalize on said 50%, and then it crashes throughout the intraday because the market just hasn't been there for us lately. With stimulus coming up though, and people getting that money, I don't think it's too far until we see some really nice pushes. But I wouldn't be doing long-term swings, or at least I don't personally do them. Very, very casually. If I do, it's on my like IRAs and things like that. But if you're like below 25K, it's I don't know. I feel like for us, we're both momentum traders, so we're kind of biased to that question.
For
Yeah,
sure.
no, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hey.
I guess I'll go. I was just curious if you guys if there's any reasoning for dip buys, like if you see a stock going up and then it dips, do you guys have a certain way of knowing like what you want your price or that dip to
go to before you buy it? It seems like I watch Bob stream. It seems like he's always like, yeah, filming, and then all of a sudden it hits his level and it goes back up, and it's just like, how does he do that?
I mean, for me, it's just more I'm looking left. I don't know how to explain it really besides just saying, hey, there's some support there, or there's previous resistance or support there and they're big levels, or I'm looking at, what momentum, like where's all the volume at. You'll see that I stay on the top gainer a lot, or either the top momentum of the day. Maybe like today, Can F kind of died out. Where'd I go? I went to the next one, right? We're going to SSY. So it's all about finding where that volume's going, and then if you can capitalize and get those dips when no one else wants it and kind of be before the crowd, I think that helps me a lot to make sure that I get those dips before they do.
Yeah, that, and also, I still use the EMAs as my dip buy levels as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and if you get, how long you been trading?
Since January.
Okay. So, I mean, you have a lot of time, but what you'll see as you develop as a trader, you'll start seeing these patterns like form on the chart before you even like want to take a trade. It's hard to explain, but maybe you already see some of it because we're teaching you on the streams. But it really comes down to that also. You're like, well, looks like here, this thing, if you look at my screen right now, like SSY, pretty much is kind of like the ABCD. You got this big spike. You're looking to get in as cheap as you possibly can. There's going to be a sell-off because it jumps so high so fast. So you're just trying to get a dip underneath where people might have stopped out at and you feel a little bit more comfortable with. I know it's hard to explain, but the more you play, you'll see it more and more.
Yeah, it just feels like magic. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
It's sorcery, really.
So what?
It's sorcery.
Yeah, I totally agree though. Like I can understand why people question that, but it's just because like you're like, oh, how did you know to buy there? You really didn't know to buy, but there are certain like little hints on the chart. There's the EMAs that Gary uses. There is just some kind of psychological or like thing in the back of your mind that you've seen this so many times that you're just waiting, just like right now. Like give you another example that's really good. If Bitcoin right now was to go from 56K, which is where it is, and went to 70K right now, it's not 8 o'clock yet, right? The market's still open. Do you think that people are going to go buy Bitcoin stocks? Mentally, we know that, right, Mystic? We know we can just go there and go buy that stock before everybody else does. So that's kind of my thing, my thinking. Like, hey, I've seen this happen before over and over. Here we go. I'm going to go buy it before everyone else does. Same idea.
I was just thinking in my head of the list of Bitcoin stocks I wanted to go slap 100K shares of.
Right. I mean, we played Sympathy Play so often, it's just like free money, really. You just got to be fast.
Hey guys, two-parter question. One, I have trade ideas. I just bought it like earlier this month, and I imported all your stuff,
nice.
Bob. And so I guess first part is like, which one of those should I focus on? And then as far as like scaling, if I'm buying like 1,000 shares, for example, what would you recommend in terms of like blocks? Should I buy them in like hundreds, 250s? Like, how do I pick the best like scaling metric?
It depends on where it is in the chart, and that's hard for me to explain to you because you are newer, I guess, for this. But you can always scale in, and then you won't kind of like hate yourself later. Like if I'm just trying to use SSY as an example because it's up on the screen. If you were to dip by this first big red candle, basically that flag it failed, and maybe you took 250 there. That's fantastic because there's more dips that you get to kind of buy in on the way down. If you want to be super aggressive and you want to go 1,000 in right there, you got to hope for that bounce, right? So if you don't get that bounce, you got to get right back out. So it comes down to kind of how you want to play it. But personally, just learn to scale now. I hate the PDT thing is an issue with most of the traders coming in. If you learn to scale in and out now, you'll just have less risk. You'll have more respect for the charts in general, and then you won't put yourself in a bad position later. For trade ideas, as far as using, which one, just top gainers for the day is my key, and I listen to Pepper. Whatever Pepper is screaming out, I just look at the chart. The issue is, I know I haven't had a lot of time to like teach people on the stream what I'm exactly looking for or listening for, but most of it is just top gainers, where the volume is, I literally, it doesn't matter what she says. I just type it in, I look at the chart, I see how it's setting up, and I go from there, really. And it's hard to like, you just got trade ideas, and it's like, there's no like, here's the answer, just go do it. You know what I mean? it's like you have to learn all the pieces and put it together.
Although I have a follow-up question to the scaling in thing. So
Sure.
kind of in combination with your risk level. So if you scale in like the 250, like you kind of showed there in that dip, and then you're going to do another dip buy, like when do you guys kind of call it quits? Like when do you say, nope, that 10 cent stop loss, whatever that ends up being, when are you going to fail?
I mean, if you got in, say, 250 at 550 and it was early and you didn't cut right there and you decided, hey, I got more shares that I want to get in because everyone's talking about this and this is the number one gainer for the day, and I believe this could actually bounce right back above that VWAP, then you're taking, so you're in 500, maybe at an average of, let's just say 530s, okay? Actually, it probably wouldn't be that great. Hold on, let me look. So you got in at 550. You got in at 490. So just say 525, because you're really kind of in a tough position already with this, but you're not in a bad position. You're just in a tough one. You just want to say, hey, there's two things. One of them is it continuing to get a downtrend? Is it continuing to break that support over and over again? Maybe you just want to get out. Or two, it was, gosh, I keep blanking today, but it was more of your threshold for your whole account. So if your threshold was, what would be that number? So you're at 25% loss at 500 shares. How much is that? Is that 250?
$125.
Yeah. So I mean, if your threshold is that you don't want to lose more than that on the trade, then that's where you just got to cut it. You can't say, well, I'm gonna risk $100 in this trade and then let it be like $300 down. So you have to have kind of like your own gambling number there before you even get into the stock. That way you can kind of contribute, saying, hey, this is my risk level and this is my risk tolerance. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Can you all talk a little bit more about the strategy of going heavy, and if it's something that you would recommend for beginning traders? I know a lot of the education materials in Atlas, some of them say, don't never risk more than 1 to 2% of your account. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Gary's gonna love this one.
I love this one so much. So, you guys know that I go heavy on like pretty much every trade I take. Like, I start with like 100,000 shares. Sometimes I'll go up to like, depending on the price, as many as 500,000 shares. So I love going heavy, and I'm telling you that from the perspective of an experienced trader that's been doing this for years. But I will say this right now, when you're trying to grow your account with 3 day trades, I still feel that it's equally important to go heavy on a lot of your trades if you have the personality type or the emotional maturity to respect your stop losses. I feel like it's important to go heavy because let's say you have $1,000 account, and let's say you're like, well, I'm only going to throw in $100 on this trade because that's like 10% of my account. And if the stock runs, let's say it runs 100%, which would be an insane move, then you only made $100. Now, if you put in your entire account balance, it's $1,000. And if it runs 100%, you've just doubled your entire account balance. And now you have a $2,000 account. And the material that says never risk more than whatever percent like of your account, you can still do that by going in really heavy. Just set your stop loss at whatever price would be like 2% of your total account balance. So if you go in $1,000, then just set your stop loss to where you're not going to lose more than 2% of your total account balance. Because I feel like it is important with especially 3 day trades to kind of get above PDT. You really need to get the most bang for your buck out of every single trade. So, and again, I'm not saying that this is the gospel or I'm completely correct on this. Just what I believe and what I do is the heavier you go, the more money you're obviously going to make, but it also makes you be smart on the trades that you do take. If you're going in heavy, I feel like that kind of cuts down a little bit on the FOMO slaps or the just impulse buys, because if you know that you're heavy, there's a lot on the line now, and you have to think more like a professional trader because there's actually legitimate risk on the line.
Oh boy, Gary. I couldn't disagree more, you know?
I'm sure.
No. I mean, really, I'll be honest with you guys. What Gary is saying is totally true, 100%. I don't disagree with him. It is a totally just different outlook on how to trade. My issue is with this, there's a lot of new traders coming into the market. A lot of new traders are here. They haven't went through that, like, bleeding their account. They haven't had the tough lessons to really get them there. And I understand that you're trying to give that as a disclaimer. You get that, Gary? I'm with you 100%.
Sure.
Once you learn to trade consistently, I say 6 to 9 months or something, get in this stream, get in, I don't know if Gary's still doing YouTube, go to those streams, learn, get this stuff drilled into your head, and do it day in and day out. And then that way you can be more prepared to take bigger size. I love both aspects of kind of waiting and then, slow and steady wins the race kind of thing. And then after you become consistent, you should have a better chance at this. But after I kind of talked with Gary, met Gary, I myself ended up sizing up. If you don't remember that, Gary, that was a big time for
That
me.
was great times. I
Right.
enjoyed it.
So when Gary kind of took me out of my shell, because I've been around for a while, but I was super conservative, Gary got me to actually start sizing up and kind of being brave and helped me become who I am today, just as I'm pretty sure I helped you before. We kind of helped each other, right? So, I mean, it's really a beautiful thing. I just don't want you guys doing it before you've had that chance to really learn. But if you feel like you're there and you're comfortable with it and you're sitting on your hands when you have to, the overall market conditions are pretty slow right now, and like you're not going all in right now. Maybe you are and you're having great gains, and that's fantastic. Just be careful with that. It could really come back to bite you. I had someone who had 250K who's now at 25K who DMs me like, really, it's not a good mindset to be in, and I totally understand that it could happen to you. So just take that in consideration before you go too aggressive with it. But if you are consistent, it could really change your account very, very fast. I mean, hell, we're at 25K. We've turned it into like 1.2 million now, right? So I mean, it's something that we did just this year. January 1st, we made that much already from 25K. So that's fantastic. It's something that I want you guys to be confident in before you go and, possibly destroy your account.
I completely agree. And, everything that I said, of course, I stand behind. But full disclaimer, when you do trade heavy like that, I mean, there are going to be some downsides to it. I've lost $100,000 on one trade before. And that's just kind of the risk that you take when you're trading heavy. But if you do have a consistent strategy, you're confident in your trading, then you're going to have a lot more green days than there are red days, and they're going to be bigger green days than red. So, but full disclaimer, yeah, if you're that is a tough question. I mean, of course, I'm always going to say go heavy, but
Yes.
there are risks that you need to know about.
It's going to come down to their personality, Do they want to risk it for the biscuit kind of thing? So I agree.
I'm a degenerate.
You're a rich degenerate.
I have a follow up.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So Gary, if you had like a 5K account and you had trusted systems, would you go 5K like all in, or would you go like 4, 3, and then put the rest, or how would you work that?
So with me, like if I had a 5K account and it was a solid setup, and I trusted the setup, I had a defined stop loss, I knew what I was willing to risk, then I would just go in all 5K. But if you're not willing to risk like whatever that dollar amount might be, if you're not okay with that risk tolerance, then I would advise you to not go all in, because then you're going to be emotional in the trade. What really helps me is before I take any trade, I know like roundabout, with the size that I use, like I can't get all out exactly at a certain price, but I have a pretty good idea what the most that I'm going to lose would be. And it's a number that I accept before I take the trade. So, at that point, I'm in the trade. I know what my potential max loss will be. So, there's nothing that the market can do to really like throw a curveball at me. Either I'm going to make X amount of dollars, or the most I'm going to lose is this amount. And if you're okay with both, then it takes the emotion out of the trade.
Hey Gary, when you say, you call up something in Atlas, you say it's at 350, you say, I'm looking for 450 or whatever. When it hits that 450 or whatever you're looking for, at that point, are you fully out and then you may re-enter if it makes sense, or are you still holding past that, whatever you called out?
So that's what number I call out is like my first target. So like if I'm saying, over 350 looking for 4, then of course, if that's a target for me and the targets I get, I just don't make these targets up off the top of my head. It's because it's a chart level. And if I can see that level on the chart, then every other trader on the market that's trading is also eyeing the same level. So it makes sense to make that a first price target where you're at least taking some shares out. And then if you hit that price target and it completely blows through it and volume increases, now you're in a good range breakout because the price target is almost always going to be some form of previous chart resistance. And if you break above the price target, now you kind of have a lot of range to keep going higher and scale out along the way up just at much higher exits.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, can you guys go over your personal favorite setups and maybe give us an example of a chart?
You want me to start? I can start if you want.
Yeah.
Let me start with, I'll just go for today, so I'm going to cheat because I always like ascending triangles. It's always been kind of one of my favorite patterns. It basically is just symmetrical resistance with uptrending, basically candles, right? So on CA and F, we pretty much had a perfect ascending triangle, just kept getting higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, and then we broke 406. If you're watching this through the day, you kind of know what you're getting into. You're like, hey, I'm playing for an ascending triangle. It helps you with that confidence level. And then once you break out, you can just scale out, be safe about it if you want. It just depends on like what time of day you're in. Pre-market, I didn't want to play it, unfortunately, even though I love the pattern, because the market in general has been kind of weak. But I should have, because it was the lead dog. And anytime the lead dog is setting up a pattern, there's certainly a lot of chance, or higher chance, maybe 75%, that's going to actually fulfill that. The problem seems to be in this market for it to hold that breakout lately for the bullish side. So that's just one of mine.
Yes. A lot of pattern fails, I feel like, lately.
Yeah, just low volume. The bears are making a lot of money, so they're starting to get over aggressive, and the market kind of flips. It does this over and over. You'll see bears in control a lot. You'll see bulls. It's just it's just like the waves of the ocean. It just happens like this.
Cool.
Yeah, when the market sentiment switches and bears start losing control, I'm going to slap in so hard and squeeze every one of them.
He's going in 1 million shares, not just 100,000, guys. For real. Minimum. And he's going to make them pay him.
Anyway, guys, I actually have to take off for the evening. My fast is about to start in a couple hours, so I got to get some food in. But
all right, awesome. We went over time, but thank you so much for being here, Gary. I appreciate doing all the Q&A with us and spending time. I hope to have you back on the show soon. Really cool. I think the stream loved it. You guys can shout them out. Thank you, Gary, in the chat. That'd be great. Put some emotes in the chat. Let's play some music. I'm gonna, give some thanks.
Thanks for having me, guys. I enjoyed it. I will definitely be back soon, and I really enjoyed hanging out with you guys. And I'm sure Rocket's taking care of all your questions except for the sizing thing. I disagree with him on that, but everything else, he's spot on.
Now, I agree nowadays because I've learned how to trade properly, but before then, if you're a new trader, it's just tough to tell them that,
It is. Like, 100%, it is insanely easy to blow up your account if you're blindly slapping in heavy, so full disclosure. But anyway, guys, thank you very much, and I will see all of you guys soon.
Thank you, man. Have a good night.
See you guys.